Hello, Cancer. Welcome to your monthly March 2023 astrology forecast. I'm so sorry these are so late. I wanted to spend time on these because it's such a big month and there's so many important things going on I felt that it really deserved more time and attention. So first of all, Pluto moves into Aquarius. Okay, here's Pluto moving into your 8th house. Here is Saturn coming into your 9th house, which is happening on March 7th, so just like tomorrow. And Mars comes into your sign, okay? Let's talk about Pluto first. Now, Pluto, while this is a big deal, and it's important that Pluto is finally touching ground in Aquarius, we also need to note that he's not like fully in Aquarius yet, all right? He comes in and then retrogrades back into Capricorn and then comes back into Aquarius and then retrogrades back into Capricorn. And then at the end of 2024, he's gonna finally be in Aquarius. So there is a lot of activation on this cusp, 7th and 8th house cusp right here, or the line, okay? 7th and 8th houses are actually really connected, probably more so. I mean, all the houses, like the succedent houses, they're all connected, but this one, like I know you've been through it in terms of relationships since 2008. Maybe a lot of you got divorced, married and divorced. Maybe a lot of you got married. Maybe a lot of you really struggled in the relationship department where it was something that you desperately wanted, but you maybe didn't meet people who were also healing. And so they really couldn't meet you on that intimate, deep level, whatever the case is or was. I know that you can tell that that's shifting and that's changing. And a lot of relationships, people who got married, who stayed married, they really had to change, not only together as a couple, but they had to change separately as individuals as well. And that's a very difficult thing to balance. Your own individual transformation is never fully synchronized with the transformation and the journey of another person. Almost never, okay? And so when you have that situation going on, staying together and remaining loyal and committed to one another is hard. So if you did have, a relationship split over the, again, since 2008, that's a long time. It's a long transit. We had, a bunch of weird Venus stuff going on. 2004, yes, but also in 2012 when Venus eclipsed the sun during that time. And so it was just like a weird time, and a lot of I don't like to use the word twin flame all that often, but I saw a lot of what I would call shadow twin flame type of relationships. There was a lot of situations where one person was wanting to grow and to be, more connected with the divine, and one person did not. And that disconnect made, meeting in the middle very challenging. But now Pluto is moving into this 8th house, which he kind of likes to be in the 8th house, This is where deep change happens, at a core, cellular, molecular, neurological level. A lot of change occurs in the 8th house. This is kind of where our identity and our ego goes to die, okay? This is where everything that we thought that we are or were officially ends here. Now, obviously, this is a 20-year transit, so I'm not saying it's all happening in March. It's not. It's going to be a very long process for all of us, wherever Aquarius lies in our charts. There's a lot to learn through Pluto, through Aquarius. But for you, Cancer, this is going to teach you a lot about a lot of different things, okay? It's going to teach you a lot about intimacy, loyalty. Some of you may have either you yourself or people that you know might go through an escapist period, and that may include addictions of some kind. It may include your relationship with money, your spouse's money, or working with other people's resources, loans. Some of you might get in debt, or you may learn how to take out good debt and leverage it in good ways and actually make a ton of cash. I think a lot of Cancerians are going to like do very, very well financially with this particular transit. You're going to understand not only how to leverage your own talents and skills, because of course Pluto is going to aspect your second house here, but he is also going to teach you how to work with other people in order to accomplish a much bigger goal. Goals in the 8th house are tenfold what the goals are in the second. The second house is just more about earning money. Like, I need to earn money so I can pay my bills. The 8th house and 11th house too, but for you guys, 8th house is a lot more of like, all right, well, I'm surviving just fine. How do I up the ante? How do I get myself from $1 million to 10 million? How do I get myself from 10 million to 100 million? It's kind of like a 10x type of deal. So you're about to 10x yourself as long as you're up for the challenge, because yes, Pluto is going to bring massive challenges, but the challenges are not external. They are you becoming that person. Are you becoming that person that can handle that? I remember when I was young, I was like 22 years old, and I just started this teeny tiny little business. And I remember I had hired a business coach at that time, and you know, we were talking about what the types of things we wanted to do. And he looked at me and my partner at the time, and he was like, "You think you can handle that account?" He's like, "You probably can't even handle $1,000 account right now." He's like, "Don't be arrogant. Don't be stupid. Like, you have to know how to do the $1,000 stuff before you can do the 10,000. Before you can do the 100,000 stuff, you have to do the 10,000, right? Like, you can't just think that you're going to be able to walk right in and go straight to the top unless you're an extremely lucky person. Chances are Pluto is going to push you, but he's going to push you through the ranks quickly. It doesn't mean it has to be slow, but he is going to incrementally push you higher and higher and higher and higher. Now, if you do have a partner who has really bad money habits, this is absolutely going to exacerbate that. If you have a partner that doesn't understand their own inner workings, might create a lot of intimacy problems within the relationship as well. Lots of relationships. I know we always talk about the 7th house, but the 8th house is so important for relationships. I cannot stress that enough. It is a relationship house, whether we like to think of it that way or not. This is where energy goes to truly merge. This is where true intimacy becomes apparent or not, right? And so there's a lot of loyalty tests out here. There's a lot of like, well, I can stand up to the standard bar. Can you stand up to the standard bar? And if the other person can't, again, it's going to create a problem, and a lot of relationships might not be able to fully sustain. And I do see a lot of divorce and splitting when Pluto comes in, but it gets messier in the 8th house because, again, assets and money. It becomes more challenging to split or to detach because there's dependency. There's legal stuff you have to contend with. So make your choices very carefully, okay? And I do think right now Cancer is very optimistic about life, optimistic about where they're going and what's happening, and optimistic about potentials and possibilities, but they want to do it smart because they want it to really work. And so when we see Saturn coming into Pisces, now in modern Western astrology, and I'm starting to like, the more and more I learn about traditional astrology, the more I'm realizing that I think modern kind of screws up with some of the concepts. And I think attaching a zodiac sign to a house is problematic. Like, Pisces is not the same as the 12th house when we're talking about individual people. On a more mundane scale, okay, maybe we can do that. But when we're talking about a person, all right, it's not the same. Okay, Pisces is not necessarily a sign of loss. The 12th house is, But Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, and Venus is exalted here, meaning Jupiter is about pleasure and fun and enjoyment and expansion and music and beauty and sleep and sexuality and dreams and imagination and creativity and poetry and all things very romantic. So when Saturn comes in here, also in the ninth house, there's a ton of spirituality that comes. This is like the spiritual house, right? Ninth house. There's a lot of spirituality. There's a lot of higher level education and learning. There's a lot of travel and experiencing different cultures and all those types of things. Now, Saturn coming into this domicile, into the Jupiter-Venus domicile of Pisces, which is this beautiful, exquisite place. And here we have like the grumpy old timekeeper Saturn coming in as like a guest in Jupiter's realm. You know, he's not necessarily the most warm and fuzzy planet, but he is here to help bring a method to the madness, okay? He's really controlled, but he still wants you to succeed. So whatever your ninth house ambitions are right now, whether it is spiritual growth, whether you are, at university and growing, or whether you're trying to grow a business or grow a family or whatever the case may be, Saturn is going to help you to do it the right way. So you're not just rushing through it and you're not just consuming a bunch but retaining nothing. He wants you to retain the information. You retain it so you can learn from it, so it ultimately becomes wisdom. All right, now when we go through 8th house, because of course Saturn has been in the 8th house for quite some time, it's kind of like you were holding off on creating the changes that you know you needed to make. And now Saturn comes into the 9th and it's like, okay, it's time to make those changes, because of course Saturn in the 9th really wants freedom. This is a very freedom-oriented house. Freedom of mind especially, but also just being free from any, shackles, quote unquote, that you find yourself in. So he's wanting to set you free, and Pluto is kind of like, as just he dips his toe in, is like, okay, 8th house and all the problems, all the 8th house problems that maybe were initiated with Saturn in there over the past couple of years, we got to really put a final nail in that coffin. We got to end this so that you truly can be free. But you're not like rushing out of the gate with Saturn in the 9th. You're not like running as fast as you possibly can away from the problems. You're not avoiding anything. You're simply taking one step at a time, further and further and further away from the problems. Now, when I say moving away from the problems, I don't mean you're like escaping them or avoiding or in denial. You're dealing with them. And as you deal with them, and you confront them step by step, you become more and more free. And you will notice over the next 2 to 3 years, you become more and more free from all of that bondage stuff that you found yourself in whatever capacity that you are in. For some of you, it could also be debt, okay? Saturn through the 8th house. It could be debt. It could be a partner's debt. It could also be that you were a caretaker for someone. Someone else may have had illness and you had to be there. So this is you finding your freedom systematically in a way that doesn't hurt people or doesn't leave people feeling abandoned. All right? Saturn is going to slowly walk you into that better place. And Pluto is going to come in over the next couple of years and kind of finish everything off, okay? Now we have Mars coming into Cancer, which I think you'll be really happy about. I don't know how Cancer really does with Gemini energy. I guess it depends on your own individual chart. But with Mars in the 12th, this is... Now I talked all about Pisces. Let's talk about the 12th house, right? Because there's a lot of illness, a lot of mental illness, a lot of detachment, delusion, hospitalization, being away from society, loss, surrender. There can be financial loss, romantic loss, a lot of like not super great stuff happens in the 12th. The reason for that is that the 12th house is that reminder that you are not of human origin, right? You are a spiritual being. And so everything and anything that is this world is not real. So it's kind of showing you the illusion of reality by taking you away from it, or taking it away from you, rather. Okay? So if you did experience anything like that, that's all about to change as Mars comes into Cancer. Now remember, Mars has been in Gemini since August. He did a retrograde in here and everything. So there was a lot of 12th house emphasis for Cancer. And you probably felt really like you didn't really want to be a part of the world so much. You didn't really want to be a part of the world. You didn't want to interact all that much. You just wanted to kind of be away. You know, wherever Mars is, a ton of energy goes. So a lot of energy going to the 12th, yeah, you may have wanted to escape it all. But when it comes into the first, you sort of reintegrate into the world again. But this time your identity is different. It's different because Saturn is now not in the 8th house anymore. And so the identity and the ego and the sense of self that was supposed to die in the 8th house, it's officially, now Saturn's gone. You know, I think on one hand, Saturn wants to come in and sever, but there's also a preservation quality with Saturn as well. He wants to preserve the things that work and eliminate the things that don't work. But sometimes that can be confusing and we just want to preserve it all. But now that he's not in the 8th house anymore, it makes that desire to preserve everything not as strong. And so we are willing to evolve personally. And as Mars comes into the first, we get to re-identify ourselves. We get to redefine our self-concept. So if you're into manifestation, we know that the self-concept is a huge component of that. How do you see yourself? How do you see your life going? How do you see yourself living? How do you see your, what do you look like? What type of home do you live in? What type of car do you drive? What type of career do you have? This is about redefining everything and really learning how to start seeing yourself that way, which can be hard, but when Mars is in the first, it's very self-directed. And it does have a little bit of a selfish quality a little bit where Mars just is like, oh, it's me. But we need that sometimes because I know how considerate you are. And I know, with all this upper hemisphere activity you've got going on, there are a lot of people in your life that you have to consider. And so Mars coming in says it's okay for you to think about yourself, Cancer. It's okay for you to be a little bit selfish right now and to take action toward the things that are in alignment with your goals. And you're going to have to maybe be the bad guy for some people, which I know Cancer doesn't always like to do or to be, but you are going to have to be the bad guy. And you're going to have to turn people away and tell people no, and you're going to have to move on because things just simply do not resonate with you anymore. You're a different person. We are all different people in some regard, especially the people who are paying attention to what they're going through. Okay? Now, we also have finally, I don't know why, this one kicked my butt. Jupiter coming into a conjunction with Chiron. Now, this has been really happening since the beginning of February. Jupiter has been coming closer and closer to Chiron. On March 12th, they come exactly conjunct, and then Jupiter starts to separate off Chiron. Now, this really, for you in the 10th house, probably brought up a lot of concerns about your career. You were probably thinking a lot about money. You were thinking about your capacity to do something. You were thinking about, can I succeed? And maybe a lot of your self-worth issues, if you have them, maybe a lot of your self-worth issues were activated as well. I'm not saying you definitely have self-worth issues, but you get the idea. But it's over. And now we get to fully enjoy and fully indulge in the power of Jupiter in Aries. And we got 2 months before it enters into Taurus. And these 2 months of Jupiter in Aries, unadulterated by any weird transit. I was kind of upset. Like, it kind of made me sad that of all the times for Jupiter to be in Aries, you've got Chiron smack dab in the middle of the sign. So Chiron just had so much of an influence, but it's okay. I mean, it's fine. I think he's helping us to heal, which is important, and we do need to go through that. It's just that this is such a rare conjunction. I mean, this hardly ever happens. So, we had to go through it. We had to heal. We had to have that exposure. And now we're kind of being set free from that healing. And I do think there's a large percentage of the healing population, I guess we could say, of the people who are doing the work. There's a large population of people that are kind of ready to move on, ready to not be in a state of healing anymore, and to be in a place where the childhood wounds and the traumas, that they don't really have a say in your life anymore, where you can kind of get on top of them, not to suppress them, but simply to not be making decisions according to that wounded place. And I think now that this is over, that's more and more apparent. So if that resonates with you, like if you're tired of doing the analysis and the therapy and the psychoanalysis and the kind of deep diving and doing all the shadow work and all of that, if you're tired of that, you're going to probably feel a sense of relief over through March and through April and on into May. Okay, this brought out a lot, condensed it all in a very short period of time, and then we release. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is this Venus coming into Taurus. Now, I'm saying this in every single reading, or most of them anyway. When Venus comes into Taurus, she comes immediately into contact with this North Node. Now, this is going to be a very quiet transit. I think we barely will even notice that, really. I mean, there might be stuff going on with the markets, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Venus is coming back home, right? Her domicile, her beautiful Taurian mansion, just gorgeous, beautiful, natural, beautiful gardens and all that. She comes home and she's got these two weird guests. She's got this like ravenous, greedy, selfish North Node. And then she's got this weird scientist, Einstein, revolutionary social reform person here. And she has to play hostess. These are not her favorite guests, by the way. Although she may like Uranus, I don't think she likes the North Node all that much. But regardless, she still has to sit down. Now, the North Node, wherever he is, it tends to create a block, there's a lot of desire there for sure. And in a way, it's we'll do anything to get there, right? North Node in Taurus, a lot of people focused on money, a lot of people focused on their material well-being, but still not really able to get them to where they ultimately were trying to get. And so a lot of the desire just sort of piled up and sort of stacked, and it got all built up. When the North Node leaves and moves into Aries in July, all of that energy that's kind of just sitting as potential energy right now, it's going to finally start whooshing through. Now, I'm not saying all your dreams are going to come true with that, but right now, Venus is just sort of collecting the information. It's like she's sitting down at dinner and just listening to the North Node, and she's taking note of everything that's been asked for, everything that's been requested, everything that you're hoping to manifest. Now, she probably won't do anything. You probably won't even really notice her until she hits Leo, which is where she is going to be retrograding in July. North Node moves into Aries in July, Venus retrogrades in July, and there does seem to be a substantial release of the North Node things. It's like the end of the nodal transit there. And because this Leo is in the second house, chances are this is really financially focused for you, Cancer. Okay? So a lot of your financial goals and your desire to do incredible things, it's going to start shifting once that node shifts. Okay? I think that'll be a good thing. We'll talk more about that in the course of the next few months. I just want you to know that this is going to probably sneak by. You probably won't really notice this all that much. We'll talk more about Venus coming into a conjunction with Uranus later on. But for now, just kind of keep that on the DL. Okay? All right, Cancer. Thank you so much. You guys know how much I love and adore you. Have an amazing March, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.